I just want to take a moment to pray. I want to thank God for this opportunity to share my story with you, and that through my story, He delivers the right words and the right encouragement and the right message that only He knows what everyone here needs. I thank Him for being in my story forever, and I pray for all of you. Okay, so my story really, I want to begin, if you want to put it up, I want to begin by just sharing with you my year verse. I know you heard that we all should be choosing a year verse, and it's important because it kind of describes how you're going to live that year verse, or how you're going to live that year. And 2023 is important to me for many reasons, and through my story, you'll see why. And the verse that I chose is from Zechariah 4:6 that says, "Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit." And that verse means a lot to me because I've had the opportunity to experience God in so many different ways. Since I was a little girl, I've been experiencing God, and I didn't understand it all until it starts coming together for me now. I mean, it's been coming together for a while, but I truly understand a lot now that I want to share with you. If it all starts with faith, and if we think about faith, we question that all the time. I think I'm not alone in all the times I questioned if I really had a lot of faith or I didn't. I come from very humble beginnings. My parents lived in Cuba very humbly. And in the 60s, when Fidel Castro was coming in to take over a dictatorship that he continues to hold even after death, in a small island, my parents decided to leave and flee. And they went to the United States with 3 sons and 1 little baby girl that was 6 months old. And those are my brothers and my sister. And they went to the United States and they arrived in Miami. And they just, like every immigrant family, tried to make it happen. Make it happen for 4 children in a country they didn't even understand the language. That was hard. It was hard times. And a few years after they were in the United States, my mom was 40 years old, they decided to have another child, and that was me in 1968. I want to say that they planned it, but I definitely think it was a oops moment. But I know that God had a plan, and God had a plan for me from that moment, living in that immigrant family in very humble neighborhoods, seeing a lot of things that today I won't have the chance to share with you, but happy to in any moment. But my mother was a very devout Catholic. My mom just had a beautiful relationship with Jesus. And she taught us that. She transferred that love to us. And she put us into the Catholic doctrine, or I want to say just path. And they taught us a lot about Jesus. And I want to emphasize on the word taught because it's what you're doing. It's being teaching, but it's not about a relationship with God and Jesus. And so, but I just watched her for so long. And I even watched her in very difficult moments when she got tested. When I was 13 years old, one of my brothers committed suicide. He was 25 years old. And my mom's faith was tested, probably to her core. And as a family, we were tested. And as a 13-year-old child, I was tested. Because we didn't only lose a brother, we lost our mother and our father and our unit. But God is great, and Jesus is faithful. And we endured. We endured, and I just kept searching for that faith and that love and that relationship. I remember after that ordeal, I was going through my confirmation. I did it later in my life. And I was a young woman at that point. And I was in a course with a nun who was talking to us about Jesus and the Bible. And I remember that she described her relationship with Jesus as a marriage. She specifically showed me a ring she wore. As a young woman, that was very impressionable to me because it was her way of showing her marriage to Jesus and her love for him so deep. And that stayed with me. That moment stayed with me throughout all this time. I wanted that love. I wanted to have that relationship. And so that stayed with me for many years. I went off to college and I created my career and we pushed. My parents did an incredible job to push us all through, go through college and get educated and have careers. And we did that. And I built my family. I was married the first time for 6 years. I had 2 beautiful children. And then I had to face divorce, a very, very hard divorce for me because I didn't want that. I didn't want my life to be shattered or my thought of what life and family was to be shattered. And I had a plan and I had a dream and I had a path I wanted to take. But it broke, unfortunately. And then I remarried. And then my faith was tested personally again. When I was 42 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer in the breast, with breast cancer. I had 4 little children by that time. I was married to the love of my life. Everything was going well. And it's a funny thing when you're faced with death, a lot of things come up. And faith for me was a strong one. It was strong. It was the moment that I said, this is the worst thing and the best thing that has happened to me. Because I was able to finally feel that I had faith. Because that did not shake. It did not move. It did not waver. It was not questioned. It was just there. And going through that is very difficult. You have a lot of decisions to make, a lot of hard decisions to make, a lot of things to face, a lot of people to face. I was the pillar of my family. And I had to give strength when I needed strength. And give security when I didn't know what the security was. I didn't even know if I was going to be alive past that year. I had 2 tumors, one very aggressive, and my little kids not even understanding what was going on. But God is good. He was there with me. And I knew that all I needed was him by my side. And I said, Jesus, I know that you're here. And I know that you're going to help me. And we're going to do this together. Because I felt alone, not because I didn't have love and family and friends and prayer groups. I had it all. But you feel alone because it's very personal. It's you. It's what you think. It's what you feel. It's everything that you fought for. All of a sudden it's gone and you just have that faith to hang on to. Of course, all the support matters and it's very important. But the relationship with Jesus was so much more important at that moment. And he pulled me through. He pulled me through in ways that I would never have imagined. In fact, when I went through chemo and I lost my hair and I felt so bad and I would have to go every week and see other people in that position. I don't know, not many of you know me, but I'm a feeling person. I feel for others. I'm giving. I never want people to go and be in bad situations. And all of a sudden, not only I'm in it, but I'm seeing everyone else in the room with me in it. And then the people that just give you those small words of encouragement or those small stories, and through their stories you find strength, and that's God working. He's working all the time to send you messages if you are able to hear and listen. And all of this could only happen through love. And if you think about Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 7, 13, and I think 4, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll just summarize it. Love is patient and kind. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. That verse for me is everything. Because when you love through everything, Jesus just gives you that strength to push. I mean, just be kind and love and just understand that there's love even in the dark moments. And he helped me. He helped me push through this. So much so that I regained my life. I rebuilt my life. And then life went on. Here's my picture of my blended family. That is my ex-husband and my husband and all our kids. Because we believe in love. We believe in kindness. We believe in pushing forward. And through Jesus, everything is possible. So that was together. And on the right hand is me in my professional state, as I run a company here in Uruguay, and things were going well, and God just blessed me so much. And I'm going to tell you something. If there's one area that I always completely trusted, Jesus was at work. Always in my career. I gave it all to him because it's all about that. Every hard moment, every hard decision, every hard moment. But when I went through cancer, that's personal. When I saw my mom go through that, that's personal. And this interweaving of situations is what Jesus is working on all the time in your life. And he worked it in mine. And I was happy. I had my family. I had my plan. I was moving forward. I was in my church community. I was continuing to strengthen my relationship with Jesus. But in 2019, September 8th, on a Sunday afternoon, I lost the love of my life. He was 51 years old. And a lot of things happened for me at that moment because my world was completely turned around. And I'm not minimizing that. Completely turned around. It was completely in shambles. And I consider myself an incredibly strong human being, able to weather any storm. But this one, wow, this one was rough. It was tough. And a lot of words came for me at that moment. I was in disbelief. I questioned. I will tell you that I questioned my faith. And I'm not embarrassed by it because that's how I felt. And in the end, I know Jesus wanted me to feel that so I can answer it. I felt alone, completely alone. And I had so much help from the community, so much help from family. But I had 4 little kids. Now at this point, they're young adults, and I'm looking at them at 20 years old losing their father. I mean, that to me was never a part of my thought process. I didn't know what to say. They needed me. They needed answers. And I couldn't give it to them. Not even through my faith could I give them answers. I didn't understand anything, but I knew I had to tick the boxes. I had to put my therapy in place, and I had to go to my church community, and I had to just absorb all the words everybody had to say, and John and Lisa, supporting me on an individual basis, all my friends here supporting me and just giving me words of encouragement, and little by little trying to rebuild something that I could feel, that I could see the colors again, because I couldn't see any. So I ticked the boxes. And I put all that in place, but I still questioned. I still felt loneliness. I still felt I could not do this. And then I remembered through this process that my relationship with God is never gone. It's just how much I want to depend on it. I truly depend on it in hard moments. And I remembered this poem for I'm talking high school. It was the first time I ever saw this poem. I know a lot of you know it. And this poem talks about what happens when you can't deal with something. And it talks about why do we feel so alone in certain moments of despair and frustration and anger. And if something Peter left me was that he always loved silence. He was a guy that just loved to have silent moments. And I didn't understand that language for a long time. I was married for 22 years, and I didn't understand a lot of that. But he left me that. And I started to explore those silent moments so that I can hear God, so that I can hear whatever message was being sent to me, so that I could clean my soul and my heart from this anger and this venom that was coming in, because I was angry. I was angry at everything and everybody. And then he starts to talk to me, and he talks to me reminding me of, remember when you saw this? Remember the first time you ever saw this poem? What did it say? When you asked, why am I walking alone? Why is there only one set of footprints when there should be two if I'm talking to you and building a relationship with you? And what did God say in that moment? And I want to read it because it's so incredible. He says, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never, ever during your trials and testings. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. That, to me, the first time I read it was so touching. And it reminded me now that that's why I felt I was alone, but I was not alone. He was carrying me. I needed to build the relationship with him. I needed to listen. I needed to hear him. I needed to cut out all the things that I thought were troubling me and just concentrate in my love for Jesus, because he is a God of love. Love. Go back to love. Love endures everything. And I loved my husband, and I had a beautiful 22 years. We built an incredible family. Hold on to that. And if you love, you know that Peter's in the best place that he can be. Almost find comfort in knowing that he's in heaven. What an incredible gift. But how do I explain that to my family and to my children? And how do I rebuild my life? And how do I ever rebuild knowing this terrible hole I have in my soul that I still feel today? But Jesus is faithful, and he continued to find me. He continued to talk to me. He continued to walk with me and carry me. And I still did not understand the importance of surrendering to Jesus until a few years later, I was tested again. Here in this picture, you see my older brother. When my parents died, he was the patriarch. He's the lead. He was 16 years older than me, so he was a father figure. And last year in February, he died from COVID, from consequences of COVID. He got COVID in January, was in ICU for weeks, and he lost that battle February 24th. When I was in the hospital watching him and just praying over him, that's all I had. I had my Bible and just my prayers. And that God, in everything I've entrusted in him, everything that I've given, everything that I'm learning about, just giving it over to him, here was just me coming to my knees. I was brought to my knees because I'm still grieving the loss of my husband. And now, suddenly and unexpectedly, the loss of my brother. And that's a lot of loss. Not to mention all the stresses of life and the daily things and the daily struggles of each person that I love so very much. So I had no choice but to surrender. I had never felt that. I literally was brought to my knees, and I tell you this, literally to my knees, alone. Here, a lot of things I don't even share with my family or friends. It's so hard to explain that. People will show up, but it's hard to explain the loneliness and the hole you feel inside sometimes. And you just want to push. You want to be a light. I want to be light in the world. I know that that's what Jesus wants for me, to be light in the world, even in darkest moments. And when he died, I wanted Jesus to show faith and miracles through his healing, because the doctors wanted to give up on him from week 1. And I wanted him to show. I wasn't even asking for his life. It was crazy. I thought, why am I not asking for his life? It's just I wanted to show the world that not to give up on God's word and in his love and in his faith. But there is Jesus again teaching me something so powerful. We don't control that. We don't control how that happens. We don't. He guides. And true surrendering and true giving up and true letting go is to let him do it in his time and in the way that he set out for you, for each one of us, for whatever purpose that is. And my brother passed, and it's been very hard for me to even deal with that grief. I'm still dealing with my other griefs. And I will. But I'm here today sharing this testimony with you. So he hasn't given up. To tell you that there are ways to do this, to trust in him, to love him above everything. And my brother was a very faithful human being. I mean, he's in a great place. Beautiful. Through all of this, Jesus has taught me through my entire life. And I have many things I can fill all that gap in of my 55 years. Of so many things I've seen and unseen, so many things. But my relationship with God is completely intact. My faith is completely intact. Even through the hard moments, because I surrendered to him. Jesus does not abandon, because he is love, and love endures all. With Jesus, everything is possible. So I'm very grateful that you guys have given me the opportunity to share my story with you. I know I had little time. It's a lot to put in there. I'm thankful to God for allowing me not to cry too much in this process. But I'm thankful for his Spirit. And if anything drives me every day, and believe me, it's not easy. I'm not going to leave here and say, oh, the light comes super easy. Every day is another challenge, but every day I get closer. And this community is incredibly, incredibly important in that process. All our lessons, all our courses, everything that happens here is just an amazing way that Jesus talks to us. So when things tug at you, when things call your attention, when someone says something, pay attention. Jesus is talking to us. I pray for each and every one of you in your stories, because we're all full of stories. Thank you for allowing me to share and be vulnerable. It's not easy, but with God, everything's possible. Thank you.